All right, my friends. Happy Friday. Welcome back to another Dividend Happy Hour. This is episode 99. We're almost at that magic 100, guys. But tonight, as you can see, we're joined by our very good friend here, Russ, or as he likes to call himself now, apparently Rusty Nails.
Hey,
What's up,
you
man?
gotta change it up, man. You gotta change it up. Funny story behind that. There's a girl I went to high school with. She was a friend that's a girl, not a girlfriend, and she for some reason just started calling me Rusty Nails, and it stuck with a few people. And yeah, like yeah, Rusty Nails is coming with us, and people that didn't meet me, and I was this tall, skinny kid with acne and glasses. They're like, "This is Rusty Nails. Sounds like a convict or a felon or a biker or something." And I think that's why it stuck because it was just tall, skinny kid. So
I don't know.
it's popping,
Rusty
man.
Nails
Yeah.
it's a pretty punk rock name, so I don't think she was too far off.
Well, maybe I grew into it a little bit. She put the bug in my head. 99 episodes, man. What's up? I love it.
Yeah, man. Well, thanks for tuning in, and thanks everyone for tuning in. Russ, thanks for hopping on tonight, man. I'm excited to. I mean, we got to chat last week, but I'm excited to chat with you again this week. Let's see real quick. Well, we'll go through the live chat in just a moment. Right before we do, why don't we do our usual? Kick this off the best way we know how with a quick cheers. So, guys, grab whatever it is you're sipping on. And I'm sorry about the lighting here. You guys know how it goes, but here's to you guys. Thank you so much for tuning in to the Dividend Happy Hour, episode 99. And also here's to the pursuit of that sweet, sweet cash flow. Here's to the dividends, which is really what's bringing us together tonight. But more than anything, here's to you guys. So cheers. And let us know a few things here in the live chat. Number one, what did you guys buy this week? And Russ, I want to hear from you in just a moment what you picked up too. But guys, let us know in the chat, what did you buy this week, number one? Number two, what are you sipping on tonight for the Dividend Happy Hour? What did you bring to drink? And number three, did anything cool happen in your guys' portfolio this week? Did you guys hit any dividend income milestones, or maybe you hit an all-time high portfolio value? Anything cool that happened to you guys in the portfolio this week, let us know here in the live chat. We'd love to shout out your accomplishments. But let's go through the chat here and see who we got in the building. Russ, real quick though, before we put some of these up on the screen, what did you buy this week? What'd you add to the
I should
portfolio?
have came prepared. So off the top of my head, what I remember, but I know for sure because today I bought another share of Vici. I bought a couple shares of Visa, and I bought a couple shares of Nexstar Media Group, which has just been falling. But I took a quick look, and almost everything in the media sector is just way down, either 8%, double digit, everything from Comcast, Warner Brothers Discovery, Paramount. Nexstar's down, Gray Communication. Fox is about the only one that's not down, which is interesting. But yeah, I think it's a sector thing. I think there's so much uncertainty in the media space that there's just nobody knows for sure what's the shakeout's going to be. So I'm still putting my faith in with Nexstar and the management. And hey, like I said, man. But honestly, I keep thinking, what am I missing? But I'm looking at the business and just. We'll see. Hey, either way, it's going to be a cool story, and we'll gather data from it, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, man. Well, that's good. It sounds like you went on a nice little shopping spree this week. How many shares of Nexstar are you up to now? Nexstar and Vici.
Yeah, I think 115 Nexstar and pushing, I think 170 Vici. Oh, I also bought a couple shares of J&J too, so I think I'm at 111 or 112 of J&J.
Okay. Nice. That's what I did this week too. I bought a little J&J, bought like 0.8 shares of that, and then 1 share of Starbucks. Are you done buying Starbucks right now? Because I know these last few weeks you've been kind of throwing it into the mix, but where are you at with the Bucks right now?
And again, and this is the stupid thing, I was buying Starbucks in the high 80s before it came down, but I was really loving it in the low 70s, and then it just jumped up to back to 80, 81, 79, and I guess I've been focused on a few other things, but yeah, I'm at 60 shares of Starbucks now. So
yeah,
I may start buying them again soon.
Johnson & Johnson's looking pretty irresistible right now, though.
Yeah, I think it's
again, been under
litigation.
150 for a while.
Yeah, it's that litigation that's pulling it down. But I really like their medtech space. I love that. I think it's can be a lot more beneficial than the pharmaceuticals, which have the patent cliff. But I love the heart devices, all the medical technology that they bring. So Darth probably knows a lot about that.
Yeah, just an overall very well diversified company in the healthcare sector. That's why it's that's one of the things that makes it such a sleep well at night stock, I think, you know.
I want to show you guys something. So, Father's Day is on Sunday, right? My father-in-law is a big fan of C's candy, so uh, I blew it. You see, I blew it. I was gonna do this and say, "Hey, look at this. Does anyone recognize this name?" So pretend I didn't say that, and then I was gonna say, "Oh, and my wife ended up spending $40 there." And then I saw this on our counter up here as I'm coming down, which is Warren and Drag. It's the sugar-free dark C's candy bar. That was almost $4. So I have to have a little talk with my wife, but not too much. It's her birthday today, so I think that was her birthday gift to herself. But C's
Do you guys
candy
get like
has some tasty stuff.
do you get the big old box? You get like the dozen or a couple dozen of them or something?
Man, I think so. We bought something that was $29.50. It's the dark chocolates #1. So
Oh,
yeah, I don't know.
that sounds like a couple dozen right there.
I think so. I've never actually been inside of a C's. It's just I pay for the candy when holidays come up, right? Which is what Warren said. That nobody buys C's for themselves. You buy it for the special occasions, whatever, 9, 10 months out of the year. Their business pretty much sucks, but then the holidays roll around and boop, everybody's buying C's. So shout out to all of you if you buy C's and you like it.
There you go. Okay, so jumping over to the chat real quick, looking at some of these purchases for the week. I see some Vici Properties. I see some Pepsi and Realty Income. Gilly here went on a nice little shopping spree. ADP, Visa, and Johnson & Johnson, all great buys there. We got Clayton here also with some J&J and Visa, along with a couple really solid ETFs there. Let's see what else here. Shannon actually just started a position in Visa, so that's pretty cool. Love to see that. Daniel, some Nvidia, some Vici, Broadcom, and Broadcom before it went crazy. Real quick, I don't know what made me think of this, but did you see Williams-Sonoma announced a 2-for-1 stock split?
Did they? I didn't see that.
Yeah, they announced a 2-for-1 split and a little dividend increase. I don't think it was anything crazy. In fact, I'll pull it up here.
the hip hop thing, the hip hop thing everybody's doing, right?
Yeah.
I wonder if Costco's going to split. They're up there, man. They're going to be pushing 1,000 a share.
Okay, so Williams-Sonoma, a measly 0.9%. So really nothing to write home about. But hey, we'll take it. I'm pretty stoked about that 2-for-1 split, though. This is the first time I will have experienced a stock split in the portfolio. This is the first stock I will have owned that I'll own during the split. So that's kind of interesting. So, oh, Russ, did you know this? So Dorte says in Denmark, Rusty Nails is the name of a licorice candy with licorice powder.
Well, I don't believe I have any licorice powder, but I didn't know that. I know here in the United States it's a drink, though, right? It's a drink I've never had. I probably should try it. It's some kind of alcoholic cocktail that all y'all drink, or some people drink.
That was the perfect segue into what I wanted to tell you. So speaking of cocktails, guess where I went the other night?
Oh no! Did you go to the Stage Door Casino?
I went to the Stage Door Casino. Yeah, I went to the Stage Door. I filmed a video from the inside too. I was going to send it to you, but it was, when I looked at it the next day, it was not a good video. But man, I was honestly kind of afraid to go into that place. I thought it was going to be pretty rough, but it was actually a really cool spot on the inside, and it was packed. There were so many people in there. It was jam packed. This was on Tuesday night too. So.
Yeah, anyway, if you guys are watching, you don't know. That's my wife always kind of pulls my leg. She's like, "Oh, we're gonna go here, aren't we?" I'm like, for $3, right? $3, you get a bottle of beer and like a 1/4 pound hot dog.
Yeah, I just got a Bud Light for $1. I was like, you can't beat that.
Yeah, it's a dive bar, but hey, it's affordable. Yeah. It's not healthy at all, but it's affordable.
Yeah, it's perfect for the investor who doesn't want to spend an arm and a leg and wants to put more money into their portfolio. But if you want to have a good time, still go to Stage Door Casino. So anyway, going back over to the chat here, this is kind of a cool little milestone. The coconut finally at 50 shares of Realty Income. That's pretty good.
Nice.
Pretty good there. Let's see.
It's getting a lot of hate, Realty Income. A lot of people, they're dumping on it. Everybody wants, ADC,
everyone wants ADC now.
EPRT.
It's the darling, yeah.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
started buying
I,
it a while ago.
yeah,
So
I don't know what to make of that. I mean, I still feel really good owning Realty Income. I still consider it to be an extremely reliable and dependable dividend payer. Um, we'll see what happens with the share price and the growth from here, but excuse me. I mean, it doesn't. They're still an extremely consistent REIT, so I'm still pretty happy owning it.
yeah, I think a lot of people are worried about them branching out into things that are not their bread and butter, like data centers and vertical farming. But they are expanding over into Europe, which that's really interesting. That we're getting that European exposure. So hopefully they know what they're doing. But there is definitely risk that they might be out of their sandbox and not know exactly what they're doing. So but again, Sumit Roy, their CEO, I think he's got a good head on his shoulders and he's done well so far. So it's a lot of things, right? With the interest rates staying high, stubborn and sticky inflation. Yeah, but I think once rates eventually start cutting, then the REITs are probably going to take off.
Hmm. Undoubtedly. And that makes me think, man, I really, if I'm going to start a position in Vici properties, I should do it sooner than later because I just know as soon as rates get cut, it's going to go back up above 30, no problem. It might even get up to 33 or 34. Who knows what's going to happen? But I think now's the time to do it. I got to quit dragging my feet on it.
I think when I started buying it, it was around 33 or 34. So I've definitely dabbled with it in the mid 30s.
Yeah, man, 170 shares though. That's very impressive. That's a really nice position.
Yeah, it's getting there, and I'm really working toward getting Agree Realty up to 100, and I'll pull it up here in a minute. But what are you waiting for? When do you think you would start? I mean, is there a particular reason why you haven't?
It's a couple different things. One of my holdups up until this point has been I feel like I will upon adding Vici properties, I feel like I will have too many different REITs in my portfolio. So that's something that's been kind of a mental block for me that I'm overcoming, and I don't think I'll let that stop me any longer. So that's kind of out of the way, but that is something that's been impacting my thought process. That's one thing. So, and then another thing is, dude, there's other things that I also want to buy. Starbucks, I've wanted to take advantage of the opportunity to buy it sub 80. You know, I want to take advantage of the dip. Johnson and Johnson's at a really great price right now. So I want to continue taking advantage of that. And then along with those two, I also want to continue adding to my Visa position. I want to make Visa the overall largest individual holding in the portfolio. And it's, it's getting up there, but I'm still not quite there. So I have some work to do with Visa as well. So I feel like I don't know. I've just been buying other things instead of buying Vici. So it's hard. It's hard when you've got limited dollars. I wish I had an unlimited bank account so I could just keep putting it into all these different stocks and not have to worry about it. But it's
I
just not
agree, man.
how it
I
goes.
agree.
So,
By the
but
way, I
yeah,
was wrong. I have 169 shares of Vici properties.
liar.
So I know.
How
I try, people. I try. And
anyway, man, we are
200 of
like
O. Yep.
oh, there 200 of O. Wow,
Yeah, I got 200 O. Oh, and
nice, man.
72 Agree Realty. That's what I was going to say. Hey, did you catch
Okay.
Howard Marks on the Acquired podcast?
No, did it just come out?
Or Howard
Howard
Schultz.
Schultz.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Howard
I think
Marks.
I
He's
told you
Oak Tree. I like
I was
Howard
kind
Marks
of
too.
waiting to listen to that, but I wanted to take notes on it. I wanted to like write about what happened in the episode, but I just decided to screw it. So I ended up listening to it. Really freaking good, really
Yeah.
good episode. And a lot of that stuff, especially a lot of the stuff that talks about Starbucks origins, especially the stuff around like 2008, 2009, that period in Starbucks, that's pretty much the whole premise of the book Onward. So a lot of that was familiar, but you still have a lot of good insight as to, I guess, you still get a lot of good insight as to what makes Starbucks work, I guess. And one thing that's interesting about it is the emphasis, kind of how they look at the employee, customer, shareholder relationship. So Howard Schultz describes it. And I also, sidebar, I'm also in the midst of listening to another Acquired episode from a couple years ago that talks about the IPO of Starbucks, which is, I think this episode's from like 2021. I'll send you the link to it if you haven't listened to it already, but it's also worth listening to. But anyway, Howard describes this situation, this relationship between those three parties, the shareholder, the employee, and the customers as such. So basically, they put a lot of emphasis on the employee. Obviously, that's why they offer them the benefits, pay for college. They really try to bend over backward to make things good for their employees. And their thought process is, or Howard's really, is you do right by the employee, that will trickle into how they deal with the customer, which is going to give a positive experience to the customer, which then creates the repeat customer, which then ultimately will benefit the shareholder. So it's kind of a different way of prioritizing things, where maybe we look at a lot of corporations and say, you got to do everything. It's all about the shareholder. It's all about providing value and delivering returns to the shareholder. And that's still important. It's just a different, I guess, a different order of operations to get there, if that makes sense. So I found that to be pretty interesting.
Yeah, no, it is very cool. I mean, it's everything's a cog in the wheel. You can't, or a spoke in the wheel. You can't, you need the shareholders, you need the managers, you need the employees. I mean, everybody has to function to make the thing go.
Yeah. It still seems, though, when thinking about it, it still seems, how do I say this? It also does seem to be a bit of a slippery slope with that. Like, it does seem like maybe the employees continue to move the goalposts as to what will make them happy. And maybe that never goes away. I don't know, but that is something that could be detrimental to Starbucks. You know what I mean? And also, that's different than something like a Yum Brands. There was a comment someone was asking us about Yum China in the live chat here. Whereas Yum Brands is like, we're going to automate everything. Like, we'll get rid of as many human employees to automate the process as best as we can. So it's the complete opposite approach of how something like Starbucks would do it. So,
well, and I could see it though. I think with Yum Brands, a lot of their things can be that repetitive, faceless. You don't need it, but when you're working with, like he says, the baristas, I mean, that's a very, it's
very
they'll give you
personal
suggestions. It's very personalized, which I think is what, as we become increasingly AI centric, people are going to want that human. Like I made the joke, like I verified that you're human. I'm a human being. I'm not, AI generated autopilot yet, but yeah, it's just, who cares if a robot made your pizza or your chicken wings, honestly, it probably wouldn't matter to a lot of people who's making it.
Yeah. And I wonder if the same would be true, though, like if at Starbucks, and they are implementing more things to automate in Starbucks, like they're trying to roll out their siren system. There was some sort of like consumer conference or something this week. And Starbucks CEO, Rachel, whatever her last name is, starts with an R. She was there talking about their siren system, which is
Rachel McGarry.
Yeah. She was talking about how they're going to be rolling out this siren system by the end of the year, which should help speed up the process, which is going to be good. One of the bottlenecks for Starbucks is like the wait times are so long in the morning that people are not willing to wait any longer. So hopefully that will help mitigate some of that.
Yeah, it's premium pricing, but you can't have long wait times. Like it's one or the other. Like it's got to be premium and quick, or not premium and people will wait a little longer. But you can't be premium and a long wait time. So yeah, that'll be interesting to see if they can get that throughput going faster.
I'm still feeling good about it from a long-term perspective. I mean, every business goes through its ups and downs, especially, I mean, just like the economy, it goes through its bull and bear periods, and individual businesses feel that as well. So it's so funny though, to see the comments like, you should sell out of Starbucks. I feel like I get them now all the time. Like, Starbucks is dead. You should sell it. And maybe they'll end up being right. Who knows what's going to happen, but I still feel good holding it for now. But let's jump back over to the chat. I'm going to skip ahead a little bit because we were quite behind. Let's see, where's a good question here? So this is a good one from Matt here, who says, and this is to both of us, what's your opinion on Kenvue? I read on Seeking Alpha this week that its share price is down 30% due to it still being closely associated with Johnson & Johnson and the litigation. Russ, what are your thoughts on Kenvue? I have not really looked into it since it spun off.
As far as I remember, that the only thing they might be responsible for is international litigation. I'm pretty sure that the Johnson and Johnson is going to be responsible for that litigation, but so I don't know if that's. I haven't really followed it all that much, but yeah, I don't know. It just didn't excite me too much. I think they got a good amount of debt on there. I don't even remember. There was some things that turned me off about Kenvue, but the products are just when you go to Walgreens, it's the Band-Aids and I think Neosporin or Vas, whatever.
Listerine.
Yeah,
Listerine's
Listerine
in there as well.
I get confused what they have, but
So
I don't know.
interestingly, in the last month, Kenvue's down 12%. So that's a pretty big drop. They're at their 52-week low. Johnson and Johnson's only down 4.2% in the last month. Now, this comment from Matt says the drop is due to it still being closely associated with J&J. So one thing that Johnson and Johnson was trying to do, and this is a pretty common occurrence, it seems like when these things happen, they were trying to do something called the Texas two-step, which essentially means, and Russ, I know you can jump in here and fill in the gaps, but they were trying to create a separate entity, which I think for them it was an entity called LTL or something along those lines. They were trying to create this separate entity, and basically place all the litigation on the LTL entity, and then bankrupt that LTL entity. And that's
they fund it with whatever, like say what I don't remember the number, if it was 2 billion or whatever it was,
sure,
gets put into that, and it's almost like a trust, and then you can sue the hell out of that. But once that 2 billion is gone, then it's bankrupted, and it shields the parent organization. It would shield Johnson and Johnson from that like massive litigation that could potentially just people pile in and just suck it dry. So yeah, it's to protect the parent organization. So they thought it was fair. I don't remember that number. It might have been a couple billion that they were going to throw in there, and then I think it was blocked. But yeah, it's a
decent
sorry,
yield.
lost the comments.
4.4% yield. We'll see what the growth ends up being like. Pretty moderate payout ratio at 50%. I don't imagine this will be a fast dividend growth company.
And the the debt was moderate. It wasn't really that bad, but
okay.
it was one of the laggards in J&J when they were part of J&J. It just was the least, the least growth of the three of their pharmaceuticals and medtech.
Yeah, decent margins at least. So I'll give them that. And I think if you're looking in general, if you're looking for something that, if you're looking to invest in a business that sells these type of consumer products, me personally, I would rather own something like Procter and Gamble, or Colgate, or something along those lines than Kenvue. I would say that type of product in that lineup, or even the Hershey company. I know different than something like Kenvue and the other two, but I would say those other two companies excite me more than Kenvue currently does.
Maybe like a Kimberly-Clark, like a KMB.
Yeah,
that might
or
be
Kimberly-Clark as well. Yeah.
Yeah, their margins
Yeah.
I'm looking are a lot better than. Oh, they have a return on capital employed of 31%. So they actually have some pretty interesting. I owned them once
Kenvue?
upon a time. Kimberly-Clark.
Kimberly-Clark.
Yeah, Kenvue's just. It just everything just looks so. It doesn't. It
So
just doesn't excite me.
This is a good question here from Black Scarab, which is quite the name. If rates get cut, if interest rates get cut, will the dividend go up also? What do you think?
In general,
I think
most
just in
of them-
general.
Yeah,
We were talking about real estate investment trusts, but in general.
They should, because honestly, interest rates had been coming down for 40 years, and they were at obviously historic lows before they historically went up that as quick as to where we are now. But yeah, it's just like it just sucked away a lot of income-seeking investors to the safety of treasuries. But you're not going to get the capital appreciation, so it's. I don't know. I know people. I hesitated. I wanted to say risk-free, but honestly, there's the time risk and inflation risk, because your money's not really growing more than the interest that you're getting paid. So that's why. So I think they will, and I think especially the REITs. Like we know, REITs and utilities were two that were pretty pretty hard hitting, and just a lot of the big blue chip staples, So
But
they
interestingly
should.
enough, like
Yeah.
some of the utilities, like Southern Company's been crushing it. I think Southern Company just in the last year is up, and maybe this is an anomaly in the sector, but it's up almost 11.6% in the last year, and even more so just year to date. So that one stock in the sector has done really well, at least. But there's been some others, like I think NEP, which is that a midstream actually? I think it's a midstream. So, oh no, it's a electric utility. That's down 55% in the last year.
Yeah, I
What
think they
about
went too
Duke?
hard into renewables.
Duke also is doing really well, up 5.5% year to date, up 12.7% in the last year.
Yeah, we sold out of them recently.
Oh, you had them?
I had them, yeah. It wasn't a big position, but just looking at their overall total return over many years, it's just, it's great for people that live on a fixed income. So,
Yeah. Lucas here. Ryan, what did you buy and what are you drinking? Well, I bought some Johnson and Johnson and Starbucks, and I'm just drinking some water. I actually have a little non-stim pre-workout in here for flavor and a little bit of creatine from my workout earlier today. So nothing fancy tonight. Nothing crazy. What are you drinking, Russ? You look like you had kind of a bottle, like, yeah, just water. There you go.
It's one of my kids' I don't know, hypercolor cups. Not many of you remember hypercolor, it was clothing back in the 80s where you would put your hand on it and the heat from your hand would change the color. And I don't know. It was a thing for a minute, but so now I call everything that changes, with hot or cold hypercolor.
Yeah, there you go. Okay, let's see. We're about 10 minutes behind in the chat. Let me see. Yeah, Fast Eddie going back to Starbucks. If you don't pay employees, who's going to buy their product? You can make everything automated, but who's going to buy it? Yeah. Like Russ was saying earlier, if you go to Taco Bell or if you go to KFC, that human interaction's not as important, but that's like Starbucks' bread and butter. That's a huge part of the whole experience. So that's why they emphasize it so much.
I think that also talks to, or, it's kind of like some of the commodity businesses when they're really tied to a commodity, like fertilizer or steel products. Because honestly, if we needed to buy steel beams, do you think we care like where we get the steel beam from? I mean, obviously, unless it's a complete piece of garbage, but no, we're going to look for the cheapest steel price. Fertilizer, it's fertilizer. Just going to look for the cheapest. So that's why I think a lot of times, like LyondellBasell is one that I'm thinking about selling out of in the petrochemicals. They're one of the leaders, but man, when the price of oil drops, like they get affected hard. And, it's things like that I love thinking of that are out of management's control. So, yeah, but with food, it's like I said, honestly, if I want a pizza, I really don't care if a robot made the pizza or if a person made the pizza, as long as it looks and tastes like I expect it to, it's really not going to bother me. So, but we'll see. We'll see.
Man, so you've been doing some serious consolidating in your portfolio lately, huh?
I have, and I'd love to be under 20 individual positions. We're getting there, and that's kind of what I've been going toward, is looking for super high conviction businesses, quality businesses, and I have a lot that I've just not really done anything with. So, like McDonald's, Lockheed Martin, some of the Lyondell, I've held those for a long time.
What are your like smallest positions? What are just by weighing in the portfolio, what do those look like?
I can tell you in a minute here if I pull them up. But sorry, I was looking at that dot on your head, and it was kind of.
I know. I'm sorry, guys. This is
No.
when it gets to be this
dude.
time of year in Vegas. It's just like that. The sun stays up. The sun stays up longer, and it shines right through the blinds this time of day. So it's really distracting. So
All right, so here we go. The percent of the portfolio, and this is the three that we share, because like I always say, I have 401k mutual funds that are a really big portion through my employer. But from what I share on the channel here, the smallest is IIPR, Innovative Industrial Properties. That one, still holding 10 shares that I'm down quite a bit on. And I don't know. I may sell those eventually. But yeah, LyondellBasell, SCHG, the Schwab U.S. large cap growth, that's 1%. Chevron 1.5%, McDonald's 1.5%, and then AT&T has gotten down to 2.3. I've been using that as a slush fund to buy other things. And then Prudential and then Harrow Incorporated, which does not pay a dividend, which I bought one more share of this week, I think. So yeah, I'm thinking about getting out of LyondellBasell just because of the commodity risk that there's a lot that is tied to the commodity that management doesn't control and they can't do much about. So their revenues likely fall, and they were bankrupt in the early 2007, 2008. I think they declared bankruptcy. So it's just a thought. I'm not in a hurry, but
Yeah.
hey,
So with some
Kevin
of
Burgess
those
is here.
with some of those smaller positions, the ones that are like, 1.5% or 2% or
McDonald's,
less,
yeah.
yeah. Do you see yourself holding on to them? Do you see yourself holding on to them, or do you think there will be a point where you'll look at those and say, you know what, they're just not meaningful positions, and all they're doing is kind of like taking up headspace? Because by owning them, you still want to keep track of them and still keep tabs on what's going on. So do you think there will ever be a point where you'll look at those and say it's just not worth owning anymore? Like, they're good businesses, but I just don't plan on adding to them. And
Yep.
so
I
what
saw
do
it
you
in
think
the
about
chat
that?
earlier. I did that with Energy Transfer, and I rolled it
Mhm.
into more energy products partners. And it was 31 shares I bought during the pandemic dip. I think the average cost was about $6.80 a share. And I sold out around 14. And I know it's gone up from there. So I should have held a little bit longer. So yeah, stuff like that. I hadn't looked. Honestly, like Lockheed Martin, I don't even know who the CEO is. I just really haven't been paying attention. I know what they do. I know that they're tied in with the government, and they've just been sitting there. But yeah, McDonald's. My average cost is $176 a share, and it's
Oh,
253
nice.
now. So that, like, I know a lot of you in the chat, you get price anchored just like I do, and I see that 176, and I just think, man, I'm gonna wait till it comes down there. But at this point, I know a lot of people are talking 250 looks really, really tasty for McDonald's. So
Yeah,
yeah,
that's something I think about too. I've got a few smaller positions. Like Southern Company is actually one of them. I think it's maybe 1.25% of the portfolio. Coca-Cola is kind of along the same lines, and I look at those two, and there's a couple others that are like that as well. And those are some of the thoughts I'm starting to have around those. And going back to what we were talking about earlier, just not feeling like you have enough money. Like, I don't know that I plan on adding to those positions again. I've done really well with both of them, but I look at those and I think, I really want to add Vici. Would it be a good idea to unlock that money that's in those two companies that are not meaningful positions that I still think are good companies to own and definitely are sleep well at night companies? Would it make sense to unlock the funds in those and put it in something that I probably will end up building a bigger position in? And it's
I
it's it's such a tough thing
yeah,
to juggle
I,
in
I'd
my head.
I'd love to know what the chat thinks, but
Yeah.
honestly, Warren's talked about doing that. He says sometimes when you see a sell a position, there's nothing wrong with the business. We just see a much better opportunity, and we'd like the money. So they sell out of something that is good, and that's why I think it's funny when people are like, "Oh, Warren sold this, I'm gonna sell." You might not want to do that because obviously they don't know what's going to happen, and there's thousands of reasons that anyone can sell anything. So yeah,
Yeah,
I
that's
kind
true.
of did that with others where Duke was one where I just thought there was better opportunities and uses for the money. And right, that goes the opportunity cost. Wherever you have your money, it could be somewhere else. So if there's a better opportunity somewhere different, then it might make sense to sell.
Yeah.
Unless you're me, because most of what I sell and then it goes up from there. So
Well, hang in there with some of those. I know Nexstar has
yeah.
been stressing you out, but man, you might just be ahead of the game. We'll see what
Well,
happens.
that's why I did the sector, and that can help a lot of you that are watching. Is if you see one of your positions falling, sometimes just look at the sector. And it's funny, as I just started looking at all the other media companies, every single one was down, 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 down. So it's not just them. And I think just like I said, a lot of the market hates uncertainty. So I think there's a lot of uncertainty around media and movies and streaming and broadcast television and just all this. So hey, it could be a risk, but you gotta take some risk sometime.
Absolutely. So let's jump over to the chat. This is a really good question from Long Rifle 14. Hey guys, as a beginner, but starting later, 48 years old, should I start with a couple ETFs or individualize with stocks starting with $10,000? What do you think about that, Russ? What do you think you should do?
I think
He or
you
she
still
should
have a
do.
long, yeah, I think you still have a long time horizon unless you're planning on retiring in the next 2 to 3 years. So I'm 46, so I'm right there with you. And honestly, in earnest, I didn't start till my late 30s, really trying to figure all this out. But it's gonna, and I'm sure you'd agree with this, Ryan. It's all gonna depend on what effort you want to give it, because ETFs are fantastic. My wife is in VTI now. We open up a Roth just for her, one holding VTI. That's the entire investable US stock market. So when you buy VTI, you get a tiny little sliver of almost 4,000 businesses. And she knows that. She told me it's a little sliver of 4,000 businesses. So there's really not much risk there. But she's never going to want to look at individual companies, read annual reports, listen to earnings calls, listen to conferences where, the CEO and CFO from a business you own are there. She's not going to do any of that. So if you don't want to do any of that, then ETFs are the way to go. And I would keep it simple, broad based, and most Vanguard ETFs are low, but it's hard. It's so hard to say because there's literally 1,000 different answers you could give for every person. But yeah, that's where I would start. How much time and effort do you want to give it? If it's none to very little, then ETF it. Or you could ETF and then start buying a little individual positions, because honestly, you're not going to learn anything about owning businesses or investing with ETFs, which is perfectly fine. But if you want to learn, make mistakes, and start getting some experience and paying your tuition to the market, then individual stocks are the way to go. And I'll end with this. I know we can ramble, man, with the best of them. Is pick one business. If you want to do the individual thing, just pick one business and spend a couple weeks learning everything you can about that business with its annual reports, just looking at its website. What does it own? Who runs the thing? Where did the people that run it, where did the management come from? And just learn everything you can about that one business.
Yeah, 100%. And that one business should be one that you're familiar with. Like for me coming into this, I've always been a pretty regular Starbucks customer. I've always loved Starbucks, and so that was a pretty natural one for me to look towards because I already had a pretty good familiarity with it. So it would have made sense to invest in something like that I at least understood. And I will say too, and you might not even know starting out how hands-on and involved you want to be. And so kind of like what Russ was saying, if you just start with ETFs and then maybe at some point dip your toe into the individual stock pool with just like one, I think that's a pretty good way to test those waters. And I will say, if you're going to be investing in individual stocks, you definitely want to learn how to look into these companies and analyze these companies. And one of the most important things about that is going to be learning how to read the financial statements. And this book right here, if it'll focus, I think is one of the best resources that any investor, especially any beginner investor, can buy. This is Warren Buffett in the interpretation of financial statements. It goes line item by line item through the three major income statements, or financial statements: income statement, balance sheet, statement of cash flows, and it breaks it down very simply. You'll learn a lot from reading this book, and each chapter is only like a page, so it's a really good resource, and I'd highly recommend it. But I know, like, I can probably speak for Russ when I say this too, but like I really enjoy learning about these businesses and also learning how to analyze and look into them, and I enjoy thinking about them. It's fun. It's kind of like a hobby, and so that's why I like having individual stocks in the portfolio, but not everyone's going to be interested in that. A lot of people, most people I would say, know they should be investing, but don't want to invest because they don't know where to start. They don't want to spend time figuring it out and all that stuff. And for those individuals, ETFs are the perfect way to go. And I think for someone just starting out, who's just starting from scratch, very brand new to all this stuff, in general, ETFs are the way to go as well. It's skin in the game. You'll start to feel some of the daily market movements, which can be a bit, depending on which way it goes, it can kind of be a bit unnerving for brand new investors who've never seen the ups and downs before. So in general, I'd say start with ETFs and then slowly branch out from there and see how it feels if you
I
want to.
agree. I don't have the cover to mine, but yeah, I mean, there you go. Look at it.
There you go.
I mean, you just everything, every page. I've some pages, chapters. I'm underlining everything, but it's like a cult we're in now. You see, you got to have the book, man. You got
to have the book. It's the rite of passage. No, but it's fun. Like the cool thing about doing this is in learning how to read financial statements and look at businesses is you can carry that into so many other things in your life. I think Warren said something to the extent of being an investor made him a better business person, and on the inverse of that, being a business person can help make you a better investor. So the two really go hand in hand. There's a lot of things that you learn from this that you can carry over into other things.
Great God, Nix. Investing is definitely a cult. My favorite cult. I don't know. Yeah, Black Scarab. Yeah, you can wear a cloak and a hood. And that's exactly it, man. You get that cloak, you get that hood, stitch whatever you want on it because it's your pathway. It's your way to doing it yourself. And that ties into you'll develop your own system, your own way of doing things, your own feeling, probably through trial and error like I have. And, and that's another thing is, the market discounts widely known information. So if there's something that the whole market knows, it's discounted. And I listened to it'll be this topic of my newsletter coming out. But I listened to Li Lu, the Chinese investor, give a speech from 2006 at Columbia Business School. And one of the things he was saying is that when you really do your homework and you dig deep and you dive deep, you can find information that the market has missed. And you will look crazy if you're ahead of the game. The market is going to say you're wrong. 98% of the people that you talk to say you're wrong on this. But he said we are in our DNA, we evolved to want to go with the herd because it was safe. It meant survival. So investing is kind of the opposite of that. If you want to have really big gains and do really well, a lot of times you have to be prepared to fight that urge to want to go with the herd, which it gets the best of me sometimes too. And be prepared to stand on your own. And it says it's cold, it's lonely. People will laugh at you and tell you you're wrong. But, you have to develop that for yourself. So again, I don't know where I was going with that. We'll just wrap that up there. But shout out Li Lu. Really interesting.
Well,
interesting.
An important addition to that too, one thing to keep in mind is everyone's going to have different opinions on companies. I wrote about this in this week's newsletter. There's two sides to every transaction. That if you're going to buy a stock, there's someone on the other end who is selling it. And like Russ was saying earlier, there's so many reasons why someone could be selling a stock. But one of those reasons is because they don't think the future of the business is as bright as the present or the past. And it's so funny how we can all look at the same business and have two completely different opinions on its future outlook. And it's important to keep in mind too, that the way we look at these things is all based on our own experiences. And we all have lived different lives. We've all seen and done different things. And that plays into how we approach businesses and which ones we think are good, which ones we think are bad, which ones are in our circle of competence, which ones are not. So tying that all together, like Russ said, you really can't borrow conviction. You really have to stand on your own 2 feet, for better or for worse. And if you end up being wrong about a certain trade or a certain investment, then that's a pretty good lesson. You either win or you learn, I suppose.
I'm hearing Munger's mental models in some of what you're saying, man.
Well, that's good, man. I hope he's rubbing off on me a little bit. That's good.
That'll be his name.
Absolutely. So jumping back over to the chat here, guys, and I'm so sorry I'm skipping over some of these. We go off on these tangents. This is just what we do. You guys know that already, though. So Ryan and Russ, did you see the CFO of Tyson got arrested again? I actually didn't, but I have it pulled up over here on Seeking Alpha. So let's actually
arrested
read.
For drinking and driving again.
So have you already?
Sorry, it's a good song. She got arrested by the Interrupters, but
what's your plan for tomorrow? Are you a leader?
My wife loves that song, by the way.
Big fan of that band. They are very good.
You saw them somewhat recently, I think, within the last year.
Yeah, they opened up. Not the. It was maybe a year and a half ago. They opened up for Flag and Molly, and it was here in Chicago. And I wanted them to come back on because Flag and Molly was a little slower and older and didn't have the same energy, man. So
This is crazy. So you're right. He
yeah,
was arrested for drinking and driving. Um, wow. Okay. The latest arrest comes 19 months after he was arrested for being asleep in the wrong house. Happens to the best of us. Great grandson. He was the great grandson of the company's founder and was a former investment banker before joining the family. I wonder what the comments say. Get rid of him. Yeah, I can't imagine these comments are going to be too sympathetic.
he's got to be out on his ass because honestly, he can't take responsibility for his own life. How is he going to take responsibility for the company's financials and the best interest of the shareholders? He's out. I know they suspended him, which I think is crazy. He should have been relieved, fired out immediately.
Yeah. Wow. That's wild. But anyway, Kevin, thanks for sharing that. I did not notice that. I haven't really kept tabs on Tyson for a while. There was a moment I was kind of interested in it, but yeah, I mean, issues like that, it kind of leaves a bad taste in my mouth. So
David Garcia says they got rid of him, so I didn't. They may.
okay.
I hope they did. I didn't. I just saw that he was suspended. So
Okay.
but hopefully they did get rid of him because that's
All right. Let's keep going here. Let's see. Blaze with a interesting quote here. As I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, take a look at my life. There's not much left. All right.
it's Coolio. Come on, man.
There we
It's
go.
Coolio. God rest his soul.
Oh, do you hear this, Russ? We are the high priests. Oh, of the cult of investing. There we go.
I've always wanted to be a cult leader. It must be working because I've just been reading this book, The True Believer by Eric Hoffer.
What's that about?
It's thoughts on the
mass
nature of mass movements. It came out in the 60s or late 50s. Really fantastic stuff. And just the psychology behind mass movements and how they get going, why people join them, and the nuts and bolts of cults and mass movements and stuff like that.
So Chris here says, I'm thinking Nvidia, speaking of mass movements, I'm thinking Nvidia is going to pull a Tesla. I'm enjoying watching these top companies trying to be number one. When we talk a lot about Nvidia, it's obviously the it stock right now, but it's one that neither you or I have much interest in owning. At least in your case, Russ, what are some of the reasons for that?
I don't understand it. You guys have heard me say, if you put in front of me an AMD chip, an Nvidia chip, and I don't know, maybe not Qualcomm, an Intel chip, I can't tell you how they function and what their function makes them superior to the other ones and why they would still be superior in a couple of years. It's just, I don't know that. But, if we're talking Dorito chips and Utz chips and Lay's chips, I know of those chips. And I know it sounds silly, but there's kind of some truth to that I can reliably predict that when I go by, my brother-in-law's house and they bought the Aldi brand Doritos chips, and I'm like, this is not a Dorito. They didn't do it. That's sacrilege. I couldn't think of anyone else because they only buy Doritos and I love it. But if they have, I'm sure they did at one time, but yeah, you know the difference. And I'm like, wow, this is not even close to a Dorito chip, Frito-Lay brand Dorito chip. And also on top of it, so I don't understand where they're going to be in a few years. And the technology in the industry is so rapidly changing that I just don't know. I can't reliably predict it. So you know what? It goes in my too hard pile and I'm just perfectly fine having exposure through mutual funds, the S&P 500, SCHG, things like that. And that's good enough for me. So I don't know.
Yeah. So in general, this is another really good question. What do you think about high dividend closed end funds? So now we're getting into the realm of like the Income Factory type stuff. I know you've read that book. I don't remember exactly when it was, but in general, what's your take on investing in closed end funds? I've got some thoughts on it, but
yeah, I don't know enough about them, and I didn't like it. I don't know. It just didn't. It didn't float my boat. Even though I talked with Jeremy from Dividend Stockpile, and I know he's big into this CLOs, but I don't know. What are your reasons? For me, it just I didn't really understand it enough, I guess.
I think it's kind of the same. I think it's some of the closed-end funds are a bit over my head, but at the same time, I'd say in general, I just like the idea of investing in businesses, straight up businesses that are producing cash flow. And this is the same reason why I've kind of gone off of being interested in like covered call ETFs as well. While I do understand those, I'd say a little bit better, some of them a little bit better. It's still the same thing. I'd rather just look for, and it's more fun for me to do this as well. I'd rather just look into businesses and build my collection of those. So, Mountain High, thoughts on the Fed keeping rates UNCH?
Unchanged.
Unchanged. Okay.
Yeah.
I don't really have any serious thoughts on it, to be honest.
I think it's crazy that the market is up like another % or something this week because I don't know, just nothing will bring this market down. It's that hot. It's a runaway train. Inflation is a little stickier, right? What was it, like 3.4% year over year? So it's still not to their 2%. And and also we don't know if it's 2.0% that their target is or if it's 2.9%. But the fact that the market just keeps powering higher, and yeah, the AI stuff, Nvidia and Broadcom and all that keep pulling it higher. But honestly, you would think that, in my mind, if we knew when we started the year that there was going to be maybe no rate cuts, when I remember hearing there was going to be 4 or 5 rate cuts this year before the calendar turned. You would think the market would have sold off in a panic, but now they're just like, maybe 1 this year. We'll see. And the market's like, good enough for us. Let's just keep buying. So, I don't know at this point, and we can't predict the macro, and this is why I think you and I love to just focus on the business, man. Just focus on the businesses. And I get that from Warren and Charlie, them saying that they can't think of a serious time when they've ever let the Fed, interest rate policy affect their buying or selling or not buying of a business. Like it never, macro really never comes as a part of it.
Yeah. As far as the inflation rate, one thing I wonder if because for a long time the target's been 2%, right?
Yep.
And I wonder if there comes a point where inflation's just so sticky that they decide to say, well, maybe 2.5%, or maybe we just call it good at 3%. I'm interested to see if that, and I don't know if that's ever happened in the past. I don't know enough about it to know that, but I wonder if that ever becomes a thing.
Kevin Burgess, he said there were 7 rate cuts priced in for 24 late last year. Yeah, can you imagine? They priced in 7, and then before the calendar flipped, they're like, oh, actually, it's going to be 1, maybe. Like the market probably would have tanked. But hey, here we are. It just goes to show you, nobody knows what's going to happen. Nobody knows, because there are trillions and trillions of possibilities every single second. So it's just too much. Nobody can predict what's going to happen.
So Matt here says the government spending of the CHIPS Act and the Inflation Reduction Act are helping to prop up the economy. Yeah, I think I think they've shelled out some money already for the CHIPS Act. I know Intel got some of that. I think Taiwan Semiconductors got some of that, and there was another company that maybe Texas Instruments that got some of that. I could have that wrong. I think it was
TSM.
Yeah.
Or TXN. You said
yeah.
TXN. TSM. Yeah, TSM and TXN.
Is it just the manufacturers, or do the designers get some of that as well? I know Intel's both, but
who are the designers? Isn't that like ASML, I think? They're the ones that
no, like Nvidia designs chips.
That's right. That's right.
What's the other
Qualcomm
A1?
designs chips, right? Apple has Qualcomm chips that they can't seem to get away from. I know, in their phones.
Yeah. What's the other A? ADM?
AMD.
AMD. Yeah. So I think they're a designer as well. Apple's now a chip designer as well.
Yeah. And they got AI coming, so that's it. All they had to do was just say, we got AI, Apple Intelligence.
Yeah. Okay, let's keep going here. Designers are getting some money too because of lobbying. Government spending is also keeping inflation high. Yeah, a lot of moving parts right now.
Yeah, and
But
we
things are
don't know.
definitely frothy.
We
Definitely
don't know where
frothy.
it's going to land, but it's crazy. It just that's what it feels like to me. I think the market is just going to keep going up until there's a clear catalyst that just happens and to make it stop on a dime and start going down. But I don't know. When will that be?
And it's not
Probably.
just this is not just limited. These crazy movements are not just limited to like tech stocks and chip stocks either. Like we were talking about Williams Sonoma earlier. That's obviously been, and I've talked about that one to death. That one has been insane.
Yeah.
Another one that's sneakily gone up. This is a very under the radar stock that Russ, you actually taught me about. Casey's General Store. This is up, just a gas station is up 70% in the last year. They're up 10% just in the last month. They reported some pretty good earnings. I think maybe a dividend raise. Yeah, 16.3%.
Yeah.
So there's some companies outside of tech that have really shot up. So my brother-in-law actually owns some Casey's General Store as well. He lives in Nebraska.
Yeah.
Him and my stepsister live in Nebraska. And I think there's Casey's all around the state. And my dad went to visit them last weekend, and he sent me a picture from Casey's. I asked him if he got the pizza, and said it was good. So
Really? Yeah, from reading about, I told you that they make the pizzas there every morning, and I'm
yeah.
I think of gas station food, and I don't know. I know, and that's why I love that. Who said it? Matt Bretthauer. He said that Casey has great breakfast pizza, and I don't know. I mean, I guess apparently I think they're the 5th largest pizza chain in the United States. If I believe that is accurate. And they're also one of they're also one of the largest liquor license holders in the U.S. too, which is why they trademarked your pizza and beer headquarters.
It's so funny. I mean, I was reading more about it, and maybe you said this in your video, but their pizza has like a cult following. People just go crazy for their pizza. And I mean, we can even see this in the live chat. They're getting glowing reviews. And I think
I've never had it. I'm going to have to now.
Yeah. Well, I haven't either. I didn't know about this business until you were talking about it, but I like the idea of owning a gas station. I think this would be a really fun business to own. Very easy to wrap your head around. It's very easy to understand what they do. And it looks to be a really solid business.
There's another one on that. If any of you guys listen to Mike the Dividend guy, he's one of his favorites that he turned me on to was Alimentation Couche-Tard, which is a
grocery store, right?
CTF. Yeah, they own Circle K in Las Vegas, I believe. I think they own a bunch of the Circle Ks in Las Vegas, and a lot of Canadian things too. So they're a competitor to Casey's. I think they have more global exposure though, because I think I saw that they're in, I don't know, UAE and places like that. But yeah, that's another one to look at. They're not going anywhere. So
what's interesting about Casey's is they will buy up they do a lot of acquisitions, and they'll buy up a ton of these one-off gas stations, and that's been a really really good way for them to grow. Out here in Vegas, there's a like our version of a Casey's would be a place called Terrible's. Terrible's used to have a casino on the outskirts of town as well, but I think it closed down. But Terrible's are everywhere, and they're always linked to Chevron. So a lot of the Chevrons are actually like the store part is Terrible's. But and I looked to see if they were public, but they're not. Unfortunately, that'd be a cool one to own as well.
Terrible's. There's one that's a top. Oh, I don't know. It's kind of a wishful thinking one. But what businesses that are private do you wish were public that you could own?
Dude,
I know yours.
Well, so what are yours real quick? You can go first. That's a good question.
Oh man, honestly, one that's headquartered here in Chicago, I would probably do. And I know Berkshire had some dealings with them a while ago. It'd be Wrigley's. Yeah, I don't think they're Wrigley's gum.
I was actually reading about gum yesterday. There was a Barron's article about it, I think. I think Mondelez is a really big public gum manufacturer. They own like Trident, I believe. And the gum industry has been I think they own Trident and maybe maybe Hershey's owns Bubble Yum or something like that. I may be getting this confused. But the gum industry's been tough. A lot of people have not been chewing gum as much as they were in the past. And I'm not going to get this quite right, but there were a few reasons for that. One of which was because this kind of started around the pandemic. People weren't going out as much. They weren't dating as much. So they weren't doing things that would maybe require them to chew gum going into it. So that was one thing. The decline, this was kind of interesting. The decline of cigarette smoking, declining cigarette volumes had an impact as well, because people would smoke cigarettes and then chew gum to mask that. So people aren't doing that as much. And so that impacted gum sales as well. So it was kind of interesting to read about some of these things, but you got to make gum great again. I love chewing gum. So Wrigley's is one. Do you have any others?
Sure, if I thought hard. Yeah, I don't know. Wrigley's, and I know Mars is another one. Mars seems to have, like, I don't know why I'm on this confectionery thing here, but yeah, I'd say Wrigley's and Mars. Those are probably two powerhouses that are private, and I'm sure another one will pop in there.
Two of mine, 100% In-N-Out's number one. The second one that comes to mind is Trader Joe's. If Trader Joe's is public, I would eat that up.
Maybe Dunkin' Donuts. That I know they've been.
Yeah,
they always go like, yeah, they go private, then they're public, then they're private, then they're.
Yeah.
Oh, nice. Mountain High. I'll check that out, man. He said Daniel Pronk.
Yeah.
He covers his outlook on alimentation couche-tard.
I like his channel a lot. He's got a good channel.
Yeah.
This is a funny comment from Cliff. Nice.
What's
there
that from? What's that from? It's got to be from something.
I don't know.
It sounds like a quote that I've heard before somewhere. Maybe.
Dividend Dude says Chick-fil-A. That would definitely be another great one to own. Yeah. But anyway, man, we are just at the top of the hour, 6:03, 8:03 on in your neck of the woods. So I think it's a pretty good place to wrap it up. But with that, before we call it a night, I want to thank you, Russ, for coming on and hanging out with me. I really appreciate it. It was fun as always. And I want to thank all you guys. There's 144 of us here in the live stream. Thank you guys so much for hanging out with both Russ and myself tonight for another just really awesome Dividend Happy Hour. I've been looking forward to this one all week. And yeah, I look forward to seeing all of you guys next week for episode 100. That's going to be a pretty it's going to be a pretty good one. So we talked about I don't know, maybe I'll have a cocktail on the stream. That's kind of what we talked about beforehand. We'll see how it goes next week. We got to do something fun to celebrate. So that's probably the most fitting thing. But
flaming shots of Everclear. Do it.
There you
Line
go.
them up.
Yeah. I did one this morning, so why not do another?
Yep.
But yeah, thank you guys. Thanks to everyone. I hope you all have a fantastic weekend. Definitely be sure to tune in next week. Next week's live stream. Guys, it's a milestone, 100 episodes. That's crazy. So definitely be sure to tune in for that. Have a fantastic weekend, my friends. Don't forget to hit the thumbs up button on the stream if you enjoyed it. 136 of us here. By the time I get off here, I better see at least 136 likes, 136 thumbs up. Okay. Or else I'll find you. Okay. So anyway, you guys, I know I shouldn't, whatever. But anyway, you guys have a great weekend. Daddy. I know. You guys have a great weekend, and we will see you in the next one. Take care, guys.